Shalom, and welcome to a message for the Parsha for Parshat Vayetzei. In this week's Parsha, we learn about how hard Yaakov, our patriarch Jacob, how hard he worked for his uncle and father-in-law, Lavan. Yaakov married his two daughters, Leah and Rachel. Really, he intended to marry Rachel, and his father-in-law gypped him. He actually fooled him and had him marry first Leah, and then later Yaakov married Rachel afterwards. Throughout the 22 years that he spent there at his uncle's house, his father-in-law's house, he was constantly being cheated. He was being gypped and cheated over and over and over again. In fact, right before he leaves, he tells his wives, he calls them and he says, look, we got to go. And he tells them, you know how hard I worked, and yet your father, he cheated me. He changed, meaning he switched his word, 10 monim, okay, which literally sounds to mean 10 times. Our sages tell us, however, monim is like the word minyan, which means 10. So 10 monim is 100. It's 10 times 10. So that many times throughout those years where Lavan again and again made broken promises, had no intention of keeping his word, and no matter what Yaakov did, and Yaakov was no fool, Yaakov was very astute, and yet Lavan always kept on cheating him. But here's a very important lesson. Remember, as always, the Torah is not just about giving us nice, interesting stories or history, just to relate some anecdotes about our patriarchs and matriarchs. I mean, that's very nice, but that's not what the Torah is about. The Torah is about teaching us lessons in how to live our lives, teaching us how to be that ideal person, the best person that we could and should be. What the Torah is telling us, and as Yaakov himself, in speaking about how hard he worked, he describes how during the summer he was overwhelmed by the beating sun, by the heat, and during the winter by the cold, by the frost, and yet he diligently worked and still served out faithfully in all the posts and all the positions that he took upon himself. And that's a very, very important lesson. Instinctively, most of us, our reaction is that when we're gypped, when we're cheated, when we're mistreated, we feel like almost a sense of justice in doing the same back to the person who did it to us. If it's an employer or someone, and maybe we start to cheat, maybe not overtly, maybe not in an obvious manner, but we kind of take our revenge, our little justifiable revenge. We don't see this by Jacob. This is really the way a Jew should behave. I mean, it doesn't give anybody a right to cheat us. It doesn't give anybody a right to hurt us and to take what's ours, whether not only our own money, not only our valuables, but even to take our faith in that person away, to rob us of that. No one has a right. But on the other hand, unless, of course, when it's in a particular instance or a particular situation, when it's called for, when it's warranted, then you could. But overall, the approach has to be is if I choose to continue working in that place, if I choose to continue, working for that person, even though I know that person cheated me, that person wasn't nice to me, but if I'm working there, I have to work there with full faith and diligence, and I have to give it all. I cannot become a different person than who I really am. I cannot become that ganef. I cannot become that thief. I cannot become that cheater. Just because that person cheated me doesn't mean I have to lose my character. Now, there are times, like we found in last week's Parsha, in specific situations, where sometimes you have to serve the other person their own medicine. But that's only on specific, special, and I should say rare occasions. But overall, like I gave you the example, the classical example I would give is if you are working for that person and you choose to continue working there, whether because it's a choice or because you have no choice, because you have no other job, or to do business with them because they happen to be a big customer, even though they cheated you, you have to do it with full faith. What, however, you ask is the justice in this. That means he's going to get away with it, and I'm going to be, quote unquote, the sucker. I am going to just, be the nice guy. The answer is you're doing yourself a favor. Look at Yaakov. Yaakov wasn't a fool. We see it from last week's Parsha. He knew very well when he needed to get the blessings. He knew how to get it and how to serve Esav his own medicine. In fact, in this Parsha too, he knew how to overcome, and in fact, he did overcome the cheating and the conniving of his father-in-law, of his uncle Lavan. But overall, he was the honest person. He didn't return the favor that Lavan kept on giving him. What was the blessing? What's the result? Hashem paid him back. When Yaakov left there, he left a very, very, very rich man. In fact, as soon as Yaakov left, do you know what happened? Lavan lost everything. Everything that he gained through cheating Yaakov, through oppressing Yaakov, Hashem took away from him. So there is justice. Not justice that we kind of take into our own hands, but remember, Hashem runs the world. May you always be in situations where people treat you with dignity, with honesty, and with benevolence. But even if not, may Hashem always give you the blessings that you be the best person that you can be.